Hey everybody, it's Saratoga, and this is your weekly focus card reading for the week beginning March 16th through March 22nd, 2020. And I also want to remind you guys that we have the equinox on this coming Thursday, March 19th. And that will factor into my message here for you guys today. Now, looking at this card, it says raise or promotion. And I know at first glance, it appears that this is all about a job. It has nothing to do with that in terms of this reading. In fact, I'm not even going to address the words at the bottom of the card because they literally do not apply to the reading that I'm going to give you guys from this card. So let's just focus on the image and also on the words raise or promotion. And let us put those words in the context of where we are right now in terms of our global experience, our collective experience overall, because we are all sharing a very profound and unsettling experience right now with the pandemic that is happening in some parts of the world and on the verge of happening here in the US. So here's how I want you to see these words, because in that context, these words are perfect. So raise, let's look at the word raise first. Clearly, that refers to raise your vibration. And promotion refers to promoting yourself to a higher level of consciousness and to a more expanded and therefore peaceful perspective. Now, this week is critical, you guys, because especially if you live in the US, but even if you live in another part of the world, you can still apply what I'm saying because we really are all sharing this experience together at the moment. But I sense that the equinox is, well, think about it this way. The equinox represents a turning point. It represents a pause because on the equinox we have equal daylight hours and equal nighttime hours. So it's almost as though there's a pause between that movement and that shift between daylight and nighttime. So there's that moment of pause. So I want you to think about this week as a moment where you pause and you assess where you are in terms of this vast experience that we're all going through right now. And try to see this week as a moment for you to take a step back and reassess your consciousness, your place in the world, and how you view your reality. Because this is really, what we're experiencing is a societal breakdown, really. Even if it's somewhat temporary, I don't think we're really ever going to be the same after this. And you don't want to be so attached to the physicality of that. That is why you want to raise your vibration to a higher level and promote a much higher level of consciousness in yourself. Because when you do that, you're actually looking at it from a distance. You're looking at it from a much higher place, from your higher self, your infinite self. And that's where you find peace, and that's where you find clarity. And remember, you guys, that fear really messes you up. The worst part of this entire global situation right now is the fear. That is probably the most damaging thing to our human psyche, our bodies, our emotions, everything. Fear is a very destructive emotion. So by raising your consciousness, raising your vibration, and promoting yourself, this is the beautiful thing about evolution, you guys. You get to promote yourself to a higher level. You don't have to wait for someone else to do that. So when you do that, you raise your frequency to a higher vibration. You're moving yourself above that experience of fear. Now think about this. Whatever's happening on the planet is happening, right? On a physical level, it's happening. But how you interpret that experience for yourself, how you go through that experience, very much is determined by your vibration. So fear is a very low vibration, whereas happiness and peace are a much higher vibration. So if you want to get out of that low vibration of fear and panic, you want to raise your vibration to a much higher level of joy and happiness. Now you might say, well, how can we do that, Saratoga, with all this chaos going on? How can we be happy? don't make your happiness dependent on physical circumstances. That is key right now, because if your happiness is tied to how physical circumstances unfold, you're out of control of your own experience, right? So you want to go within, and this is what I mean about promoting yourself to a higher level. Because when you promote yourself to a higher level of consciousness, you promote a higher level of consciousness in your experience, you are now placing yourself back in control of your experience. And that should be your goal right now. You want to be in control of your experience. You don't want all of these crazy events to start controlling what you feel and how you experience your life. Now look at the image on this card for a moment, and you can see what is highlighted in this picture. This beautiful wreath of flowers around her head and the light emanating out. So that says to me that we really need to focus on our state of mind. We need to focus on bringing our mind and consciousness to a higher level of beauty. We can look at the events that are unfolding right now as an opportunity to become stronger, as something that forces us to that higher consciousness, that forces us into that higher vibration, because we see the need. You know, when everything in your life is just perfectly comfortable and everything's going smoothly and your comfort zone is completely non-threatened, you may not really see the need to promote yourself to a higher level of consciousness or raise your vibration. You might say to yourself, well, I don't really have to tend to that right now because things are okay. So you might not really feel motivated. But situations like this can be highly motivating if you approach it in the best possible way. So this is, I really see this situation that's happening in the world as a message to all of us that, hey, you guys, it is really time to step into your power, to step into that higher vibration and live there and be fully present as the cosmic being that you really are. We are all cosmic beings, all of us. And it's time that we recognize that, because recognizing that you are a cosmic being is what gives you perspective. Now, you do have control over your experience. You really do. You just have to make a decision to take command of how you see all of this and determine that you're going to see it all in a way that is positive for you. You're going to use it to motivate you to a higher level of consciousness. And you're probably going to have some extra time to really focus on this positivity, because you're probably not going to be running around doing all of the things that you would normally do. So to conclude this reading, let me just suggest that because we have the equinox, think of this week as a moment to pause, because you can view that equinox energy in the few days before and after, really the whole week. Just consider it a time to pause and make some new decisions for yourself. Whenever you change direction, it is preceded by a pause, right? It's preceded by a pause and an assessment of where you're going. So the equinox is the perfect timing to do this, you guys. Just pause. You can look at the direction you were going in before, and you can see that events are not allowing you to go that direction anymore on a physical level. So now you reassess where you are, you shift direction, and now you say, hey, this is probably a great time for me to focus on my human evolution of my consciousness. This is probably a perfect time for me to feel highly motivated to raise my vibration and stay there, to be fully present and promote myself to that higher experience of being the cosmic being that I truly am. And then you will be able to navigate all of these events much more easily, much more gracefully, and with a lot more peace in your heart. So with that, I'm wishing you the most peaceful week you could possibly have, a tremendous amount of clarity, insight, wisdom, and the joy of knowing that you always have control to go to that higher level of consciousness. And that's the beauty of your situation, that no one can ever take that away from you. All right, so I'm sending you all so much love, light. Have a beautiful week, and I will talk to you all next time. Namaste, everyone.